The Gophers nearly pull off the upset. We're going to talk about the Penn State game, and then we're going to talk about the future and moving forward, not just to Wisconsin, but beyond.
You are Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. We got the Gophers game on Friday this week, Black Friday. That is Gophers versus Wisconsin on the road at Madison. But before we cover that, we're going to talk about that in depth on Tuesday. We're going to talk, or I guess Wednesday. I'm recording this tonight on Tuesday. So Wednesday evening, we're going to talk about breaking the Badgers down. Thursday evening, Thanksgiving evening, we are going to do our prediction show. And then Friday, we'll have a little bit of a live postcast for you as well. So we're going to be talking about Badgers all week. So today I wanted to look a little bit further beyond the future, beyond just next week, but what 2025-26 could look like with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, with so many seniors turning the page after this year. So we're going to talk about what happened with that Penn State game. We're going to talk about the people who could step up next year with all the departures. And also we're going to talk about the quarterback room and what everybody wants to know with Drake Lindsey. So I appreciate y'all for tapping in and listening each and every day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Shout out to everyone that has given this channel some love and some listenership over the last few years. I have loved my time here with Locked On. We're going to finish up this week with a bang. And like I said, I'm not going to be completely out of the Gopher game. I'm just can't do it every day of the week. So I will be doing a once a week show. I think it's going to be called the Golden Hour podcast, because it's going to be an hour long talking Golden Gophers. So hopefully you'll tap in and find me there. I'll create a YouTube channel and everything like that, so you can continue to follow here at Locked On Golden Gophers and then follow over on that channel as well. Hopefully, I hope to see you there. But let's talk about what happened Gophers versus Penn State, because it was a close but no cigar moment. Now, Minnesota almost pulled off their biggest upset of the year versus number 4 in the country, Penn State, but PSU squeaks by with a 26-25 victory. Now, Minnesota led for almost 3 full quarters in this game versus the number 4 team in the country, and that shows you the potential upside that they can have, the type of full rounded team that they can be. But ultimately, Penn State holding off touchdowns for field goals allowed them to stay close in this game, and then turnovers really let them pull ahead. With 4 minutes left of the third quarter, they took the lead and they never looked back. Now, Max Brosmer, he had a middling game in this one. I'm not going to lie to you. He wasn't bad by any means. Like, he wasn't terrible, but also it wasn't his shining moment. And I was hoping it was going to be in that senior day environment, in that taking on a major opponent, nothing to lose type environment. He had a decent game completion percentage wise, 65% completion on 23 pass attempts, 175 yards and a touchdown, but he was the source of a very poor throw that turned into an interception, and then also a mishandling of a handoff that turned into a fumble. 2 turnovers in this game by the Gophers, both on Max Brosmer, which was very unfortunate in this one. But the Gophers defense, which is usually the one doing the turning over, didn't get any turnovers to equate that out. And Penn State, even with the turnovers, gave Minnesota an opportunity to get back in this one, but ultimately Minnesota couldn't get it done. Now, when you're looking at the offense as a whole, you're talking about Daniel Jackson, who has he continued to be who he is in this game. 6 receptions, 90 yards on 8 targets. To be completely honest with you, I was surprised he didn't have more looks, because he was finding windows. He was finding openings. He was finding extra yardage. He was finding first downs on third downs. And so it's like, overall, he was making impactful plays each time he touched the ball. And his first 2 receptions were 20+ yard receptions. I believe he had one more that was over 20 yards as well. But it's like, how do you not continue to give him the ball, because he was the hot hand in this game, plain and simple? How do you not scheme him a little bit more? And I'm not saying they didn't scheme him, because they did. There were plays specifically ran for Daniel Jackson, but when you see him pulling in a nasty grab right as a safety comes and lays a lick on him. He holds onto it and keeps going. And then soon after that, he's hitting the zig route, getting the first down. Soon after that, he's making another quick catch after that. Like, when you see this guy cooking, why are you not like, look, every play in the bag that has Daniel Jackson as the first look or the second look, pull them all out. Pull every single one of them out right now because he is feeling it and we need to get the ball in his hands. That's what I would do. It's a basketball mentality. I know they're two completely different sports, but you ride the hot hand and you keep on feeding them. And they did not do that in this game. I mean, they did it sporadically, but I think they could have done it even more with Daniel Jackson, who seemed to be in the zone. Now, on top of that, Elijah Spencer also had solid contributions in this one. 2 receptions, 4 targets total, 46 yards on the day. Darius Taylor saw 17 rush attempts for 58 yards, 3 receptions on 4 targets for 8 yards. But what's been most baffling for me when it comes to Darius Taylor is the massive change in the types of targets that they're giving to Darius Taylor over these last few weeks, because most of them in the Rutgers game, in this game, were just the simple swing looks, the simple, like, you see the running back hitting the swing or a half of a wheel route and you try to swing it out to them. They're like the third read as a check down. But when Minnesota was heavily targeting Darius Taylor throughout the earlier parts of the season, when the running game wasn't going, but they're finding ways to get him involved in creating, he was running real routes. He was running a wide variety of routes in that route tree. I'm talking hooks, I'm talking curls, I'm talking flats, I'm talking wheels, I'm talking Texas routes. I believe he even had a comeback route that he connected with Max Brosmer on. So why have we dialed that back? Why have we slowed that down? Why haven't we been getting creative with his touches like we saw the successes of the earlier season? That's been one of my biggest questions, especially in the Rutgers game, but also in this game, because there was one where he did more of a hook route on a check down. He got that. It was a critical play, an impactful play. He gets a first down in a timely fashion that Minnesota needed a first down. So what has caused the Gophers to back off of this type of usage and the looks that he was seeing on that front? Is he not 100%, or are the Gophers just fumbling the bag and not leaning away from something that wasn't broken? Because the one hook look in this game, like I said, as a check down, was pivotal moment of success for Minnesota. Now, I think the lack of these type of looks was detrimental to Minnesota versus Rutgers, and it could have been more helpful in this game against Penn State to try and pull off that upset. Now, that being said, Marcus Major still did some great things in this game. He had a really nice run of 19 yards and a touchdown in the opening drive. He went on to have 10 attempts for 37 yards and a touchdown. The offensive line was far better than what we saw versus Rutgers. And again, if this offensive line play was the play you got versus Rutgers on the road, you would have won that game easily, hands down. I have zero doubts about it. So, like, why was it such an inconsistency between the two? Now, I know Tyler Cooper was back from injury, but still, like, this dramatic of a shift. And Rutgers wasn't a great defense by any stretch, whereas Penn State was a top 5 defense in the country. So it's just crazy to see the night and day difference between the two. I love that they stepped up a bit in this game, but I wish we would have seen that versus Rutgers as well. Now, the defense made massive stands in this game. They held Penn State, I believe, to 1 of 11 on converting for third downs, and they gave up 3 of 4 on fourth downs, but all 3 of those conversions actually came on the final drive, which is unfortunate for Gophers fans because you had multiple tries to get the ball back and hopefully go take the lead for the upset. But alas, that did not happen. Now, this game was in the Gophers' grasp, plain and simple. The pivotal moments came in the fourth quarter with Minnesota down 4 in an offensive drive with 11 minutes and 51 seconds left in the game. Minnesota went on a 10-play offensive drive down the field to the Penn State 8-yard line. And then there was a wildly questionable play call on a screenplay to the left tackle, Ariante Ursery, which felt too cutesy. It felt like a boneheaded move. And PJ Fleck stood behind the move in the press conference after the game, but I think this was a bad one for the coaching staff, plain and simple. I do not think it was a good move. I thought they were being far too, they were overthinking it, plain and simple. So to me, that can't be one of your best plays. That can't be one of your best plays given the down, the distance, the situation. if you're talking about a 2-point conversion and you're doing some type of trick play like that, or you're on the 1 or 2 yard line and you have some type of trick play like that, then sure, maybe that makes more sense. But on the 2nd and goal from the 8-yard line, I can't see any reason why that would cross your mind and be the best potential opportunity to take the lead and put the pressure on Penn State to pull an upset. So overall, that was massively questionable, but ultimately the Gophers couldn't get the touchdown on that drive. On 4th down, they choose to go for a field goal with 5 minutes and 51 seconds remaining, which cuts the lead down from 4 points to 1 point. So a lot of people, a lot of coaches maybe would have taken the shot and tried on 4th down to punch it into the end zone as well. This is a move, though, that PJ Fleck has shown before. Trusting his defense, having his timeouts, knowing that he can get the ball back. And you know what? He had all 3 timeouts, and it's something that can work out. We've seen it work out with this team before. But usually when you're going up against the number 4 team in the country, you take the shot and you put your best play in the playbook out there to get the score. Now, the move looked like it was going to work out. It looked like PJ Fleck pulled another genius move, and Minnesota was going to have an opportunity with like a minute and a half to go and try and drive the field and win the game. But Minnesota got stops on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down on defense right away after kicking the field goal. But as they lined up to return a punt, they got a little bit too loose, a little bit too excited, a little bit too caught in the moment, too laxed, I should say. And they were caught by a fake punt. And they weren't just caught by a fake punt for 4 yards on the 1st down. They were caught badly by a fake punt. 32 yards. Minnesota would go on to force 2 more 4th downs, and ultimately Penn State converted both of those and ended Minnesota's shot at an upset. Now, overall, this game felt like house money, and the Gophers also almost won big, but also Minnesota really should have won this game. So that's 3 shoulda, coulda, wouldas in one season, and that doesn't feel great. But overall, you see that you can compete with some of the best. Now, Coy Parrish had 13 tackles and good defense versus Tyler Warren and one-on-one in the red zone in this game. Cody Lindbergh had 14 tackles, which led the team. Anthony Smith had 2.5 tackles for loss and a huge 4th down sack. Overall, Minnesota showed this team can keep up with the best, which should bode well for bowl interest, because Minnesota might be a nicer pick for these different bowls, knowing that they can compete out there with anybody. But also, it still hurts to take back-to-back losses. So all eyes are moving forward towards Wisconsin, which we will be breaking down on tomorrow's show. But I want to keep our eyes on the future, because how Minnesota roster will be looking next year in 2025 and beyond with a ton of seniors departing, that's what we're going to talk about coming up next. First, Gopher fans, we have to talk about our friends over at Gametime, because Gametime is the best ticketing app out there, hands down. It's my favorite, and I also love the Gametime Picks filter. It filters out the fluff, and it shows you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You can find the best ones curated and catered just for you. Now, on top of that, they have the super deals. They have seat views before you buy, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, you name it, man. Gametime is changing the ticketing game, and with their Gametime Picks curation, makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all the different types of events you are looking for, you can find over on Gametime. My favorite feature, of course, is the all-in pricing, where you toggle the all-in pricing feature, and it shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So definitely give them a try, because Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So you should take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. But again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Gophers fans, I want to dive into the seniors leaving and the big playtime opportunities that could be had moving forward for this Gophers team, because we've always talked about having more starters coming back, having more experience coming back is how you can have a better team suited to win more games. Well, the Gophers are going to be losing a lot this offseason. Max Brosmer, starting quarterback, gone. Marcus Major, running back 2, gone. Daniel Jackson, Elijah Spencer, wide receivers 1 and 2, both gone. Nick Keller, gone. Ariante Ursary, gone. Quinn Carroll, gone. Tyler Cooper, gone. That's 8 starters on the offense alone. Both your kicker and your punter, gone. All of a sudden, you look to the defense. Ja Joyner, Danny Sturgow, your starting defensive end, gone. Cody Lindenberg, starting linebacker, gone. Both your starting cornerbacks, Justin Wally, Ethan Robinson, gone. And your starting nickel, Jack Henderson, gone. You also have players like Darnell Jeffries, Logan Richter, Jack Hawkinson, Eli Mao, Derek LeCaptain, Jackson Hunter, and Jared Mangham. That's 14 starters or key contributors on the offense and defense, 2 main specialists, and then 7 or 8 others who saw occasional time. That is a ton of departures leaving Dinkytown in your Minnesota Golden Gophers. So when you look at the 8 offensive leaving players, you've got 3 starting O-linemen, 2 top wide receivers, your starting quarterback, a tight end, and your running back 2. And then defensively, you're losing your top 2 edge rushers, or at least 2 of the top 3. I think Anthony Smith deserves to be in the conversation for top 2. Then you've got your top 2 cornerbacks, a top nickel, and a top linebacker. So who's got next, or who could fight for next, and how much experience do those players have? Because when you're looking at all those positions, I want to break it down who's where kind of. Now, we'll talk about the quarterback in depth to close the show. I'm going to lean into why I think the quarterback room is actually in really good hands. But beyond the quarterback, you go to running backs. Running backs, I think you have a pretty solid room still. You've got Darius Taylor. As long as you can retain Darius Taylor, let me back it up. As long as you keep Darius Taylor, your room should be well set. You got Darius Taylor. You still got C.A. Bangura, who we heard a ton about in the offseason, a ton about in the spring, a little about in the fall, and then all of a sudden we didn't get to see him much at all in this season. If he sticks around with the Gophers, he could be that RB2 to step in. Jordan Newbin is also a guy who has shown he can be a sure-handed guy, a guy who can be a pass protector and what have you, so he could step into that Marcus Major role. If neither one of them are the option, you still have some younger guys in the program like Fame Ijiboy, like JJ Wright, who are young and will be looking to fit in where they can get in. So overall, the running back room has some names in there, and I'm not too worried as long as you keep Darius Taylor. But then you move to the wide receivers room, and this is my biggest worry for next year. There is so much talent in the room, and it's younger, but Minnesota hasn't really given them any opportunity, almost 0 opportunity on the season, and almost for a few of them for 2 full seasons in most circumstances. You're talking about Kenrick Lanier. You're talking about TJ McWilliams. You're talking about Nuke Hayes. All of them have had big moments in the spring. All of them have shown flashes in the fall, but ultimately they've gotten no opportunities to prove themselves under the big lights. They've got no opportunities to show, hey, I can be that guy. Hey, I am the future of this program. They've gotten no looks on the field, and that can be frustrating, especially in today's age and today's NIL transfer portal era. So I wouldn't be shocked if 2 or 3, even all 3 of those guys ended up hitting the transfer portal, and that would hurt, especially with 2 of them being former Army All-Star Bowl players at the high school level. So overall, if you lose all 3 of those guys or 2 of those guys, I think that is a huge impact, and I would be pretty frustrated. I was hoping we would see some more of them this season, but we did not. Beyond them, Christian Driver. I think he's going to be your wide receiver 1 next year. I think the Gophers really like this guy. They've tried to work him in different packages and what have you. But with Daniel Jackson gone, with Elijah Spencer gone, I think Christian Driver is going to be the first one up to answer the call. Now, of course, Lemeki Brockington is still in the room as well, but he probably plays a similar role to what we saw this year. If he couldn't get more and more looks throughout the offense this year, I don't know if we see a ton more beyond the blocking situations or certain schemed up roles. I think Christian Driver is going to be the main guy, but then who steps up for the other role? Could it be one of the younger 3 guys I just listed if they stick around? Could it be Tyler Williams, who is transferred in from Georgia? Will they attack the position in the portal again? I wouldn't be surprised at that. On top of that, will true freshman Jalen Smith, who is this year's true freshman, get some run? Or will a true freshman next year like Bradley Martino or Legend Lyons get a look? There's still some youth on this roster, but you've seen the Gophers haven't been getting their youth involved, whether it was Ike White, whether it was these 3 guys I just named to you, whether it was some of the others prior to that. Besides Daniel Jackson, a lot of these guys have had to wait around, and then all of a sudden they transfer or it just doesn't work out here in Minnesota. So will they be taking a shot on their younger guys? Will they be going to the portal? It's a huge question. It's why I'm really concerned about the wide receiver room, and I believe it's truly up in the air. You go to the offensive line, 3 new starters are going to be needed. I think it kind of answers itself for couple of them, but based on this season, Greg Johnson, Philip Daniels, Ashton Beers, I think those three will probably be starters next year. But who are the other two? Nathan Roy is my likely guess to fill Ariante Ursery's spot at the left tackle, and names to keep an eye on beyond that are Brett Carroll, Jerome Williams, and possibly Reese Tripp that could maybe fill one of the interior guard roles, because all three of those guys are younger, they could have high upside, and they will have to show big gains from the bowl preparation weeks all the way through the spring to try and put their name into the conversation. Now, if none of those names stand out, maybe Martez Lewis kicks back inside, but I think Greg Johnson, he'll probably stay at the center position, having a year under his belt, having gotten into the groove of things. But if he doesn't, then you could have Nathan Roy at left tackle, Greg Johnson at left guard, Ashton Beers at right guard, Philip Daniels at right tackle. And then you're talking about Brett Carroll, who was an Army Bowl All-American game player at the center position. You have Jerome Williams, who's been working at the center position as well. So maybe one of those two players take the center role if Greg Johnson kicks to the inside. But overall, the interior players for Minnesota's offensive line seem to be very versatile across the board. So I'm intrigued to see how it fills out. Now, on the defensive side of things, you go to the cornerback. Zaquan Bryan is my easy call for a cornerback starter. He contributed in big ways on special teams this year. He's had some moments at cornerback this year. Mike Gerald is another name. I know Minnesota liked what they saw in the spring and the fall. I think both of those guys could get heavy looks, especially into the spring. And get the first shot at potentially starting. I think also we're going to see a transfer. Minnesota has added a transfer in the corner position for the past 3, maybe 4 years. It might even be 5 years. So I expect to see another corner transfer come in, but I think Zaquan Bryan and Mike Gerald both get opportunities to be at that corner position as a starter. Then you go to the D-line. Jackson Howard, Lucas Fennessy probably step into that Danny Strigal role. Anthony Smith steps into the jaw joiner role. Hopefully you've got Devin Eastern and Jalen Logan Redding back for the interior. And then you ask yourself, will some of the young players work into the twos? Your Martin Owusus, your Mo Sains. We have some interior defensive line players coming in as true freshmen. Will they be ready to go? Riley Sunrum, could he jump in here? So overall, I think there's a lot of potential on that D-line. It's just having people step up. I think the trenches are hard to find in the portal, so I wouldn't expect too many portal additions there, but the D-line could have some more talent coming up and building through the ranks. Safeties looks all but locked up with Kerry Brown and Coy Parrish seeming to be the guys of the future. Plus, you've got depth in the rotation with Aiden Gooseby, Darius Green, Coleman Bryson, and all that. So overall, I think those are different options. The safety room looks good. The nickel position, where Jack Henderson has absolutely owned most of the snaps there, I think that could be the most intriguing thing. And I think the most intriguing player to me is Zahir Rayner. I think he could be a stud in this role, and maybe you add a transfer in this role as well if he is still coming along, but I do really like Rayner at that position. And then the biggest question for me on the defense is the linebacker position. I expect Minnesota to look towards the portal with Cody and Devin likely gone. Maverick Baranowski will be back. Mason Carrier is a guy you'll definitely want to keep an eye on. Tyler Stolsky, Matt Kingsbury, I've heard good things about both of them. All of those players could have opportunities to step up, but this room will be the biggest question mark on the defense. I want to know your thoughts, though. Jump in the comments and let me know who you think will be the next man up in the comments below. But most importantly, we have to talk about the quarterback and why Minnesota will be okay with Max Brosmer gone. We're diving into that coming up next. First, let's talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, because right now, new customers can get $5 or bet $5. Excuse me. You're going to get more than $5. If you bet $5 and you win, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. So that's FanDuel Sportsbook, and they can give you anything you're looking for when it comes to placing your live bets on the NFL, on college football, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view the live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you can place your bets. So go to FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL and of Locked On. All right, Gophers fans, we are wrapping up today's show talking about the quarterback room and why I believe it is in great hands moving forward. Now, I'm not going to keep you holding your breath long, barring a huge addition or a breakout from somebody else in the spring, like massive breakout, not a small breakout, not like, oh, that's intriguing. I'm talking like, whoa, this is the guy. He is the best quarterback we've ever seen type of breakout. If we don't see that type of addition or breakout come in the spring, I believe Drake Lindsey is the runaway to be the Gophers starter next year, and here's why. He has been working in this system all year, and he should know it better than anyone coming in. On top of that, he has been in Max Brosmer's hip pocket and absorbing every inch of knowledge, habits, film, breakdowns, team dinners, flights to Georgia, and the extra practices with the wide receivers every step of the way. And you don't see Dylan Whitkey at all these things. You don't see Max Shikajaski at all of these things. Now, they might be at a bits and pieces in a couple of these different things. They might have went to Georgia with him, but they're not at every QB dinner. They're not at every single aspect of the thing. I think Drake Lindsey has asserted himself not only as the QB2, which we've seen on the year, but also as the guy who's like, look, I'm taking this seriously. I'm taking every inch of knowledge, every inch of training that I can from our guy, because I am the next up, and I'm telling you and proving it right here and right now. Now, on top of that, the staff loved him in last year's class. He really stood out. He caught on fast in spring and fall camp. He impressed PJ. PJ said this might be the quickest I've ever seen someone catch on that front, and Drake Lindsey was showing up and showing out. He never looked lost during any of those sessions. On top of that, him and Max Brosmer both share the strength of anticipatory throws and getting the ball out and where it needs to be ahead of time. But Drake has a bigger arm. Drake has the size. Drake has the intangibles. So overall, he could be in a very great position to step up and hopefully build on what Max Brosmer has done. And if Drake Lindsey picks up the mental field IQ strengths from Max Brosmer and how he assesses and how he makes the checks and when to make a checks and what he's looking at, and if he gets that element down with his skill set and being a younger guy, that would put him in a great position. That would put him in a fantastic position, not only for next year, but to be a future program stud for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, his production in high school also shows he can take care of the ball. I believe he had like 91 touchdowns to 7 interceptions across his time in high school. That's insane. That is fantastic. And he had high completion percentages, high 60s, low 70s. That is phenomenal for high school. I am surprised he didn't have more power conference offers. I do believe Arkansas got in the game, but they got in the game really late. He is from Arkansas, and he knew he wanted to be here as a Golden Gopher. And now he's going to have the best opportunity to put himself as the guy for the Golden Gophers. Now, on top of that, speaking with him last year on this show, you can tell he's very understanding of the game and the why. And I think if we're going to see how much he learns from Max Brosmer and how much he leans into that. It'll be very apparent early on in the spring. And if that's clicking, I am going to be thrilled for what is to come. But I do believe the job is going to be Drake Lindsey's, but Minnesota is bringing in a top 30 quarterback in Jackson Collick. He could put his name into the conversation. Like I said, if he comes out here and he's like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, I am going to ball, then we'll find out. But I think, and barring some crazy stand-up performances from a Jackson Collick, I think it's Drake's job. And I am more than sure they're going to bring in a transfer quarterback from the portal. But what level will that be? Will it be more of a depth guy, or will it be a guy to truly compete for the QB1 position? Now, if I was running the Gophers, I'd be going for a guy who can truly compete, because you don't want Drake Lindsey to get laxed. I want Drake Lindsey to be the guy. I want him to show me every inch of his talent and be ready to ball out and show me, look, I don't care who you bring in here, I'm going to outwork them. That's how you impress. That is how you win an entire fan base. So I would love for the Gophers to get aggressive in the portal and then Drake Lindsey to come and win that job. But overall, rolling with Drake Lindsey is not starting from scratch, and that's huge. It should feel more seamless going from Max Brosmer to Drake Lindsey than anything else. Anything else would be like starting over. So Drake, he looked rock solid in the media practice sessions that I had seen. Sometimes he was even more impressive than Max Brosmer from a talent perspective or from the types of throws that they were throwing. On top of that, his early impressions caught PJ Fleck off guard, and that says something. So even all of that together, One thing I most recently saw, Tanner Morgan, who had popped in from time to time this year, spoke with Mike Grimm on his podcast, and he had mentioned how Max Brosmer is perfect for this team and for this offense and system, but also how Minnesota is going to be in really good hands in the future with Drake Lindsey. So Max Brosmer has talked him up. PJ Fleck has talked him up. Tanner Morgan has talked him up. I've heard praise from others in the Gophers media, and I've seen it for myself. I am all in on Drake Lindsey as the starter for next year until proven otherwise. That's going to do it for us on today's show. I appreciate you for listening. Tomorrow, we're diving into the Wisconsin matchup, and I will see you then. So roll the boat, Sky Mago Gophers, as always, and please don't forget to hit subscribe.